Welcome to the I Create Daily podcast. I'm LeAura Alderson.
And I'm Devani Alderson. We're your co-hosts on this journey of creativity and productivity.
I Create Daily is for artists in every genre of creating, from musicians to writers, crafters to inventors, bloggers to entrepreneurs. I Create Daily is a movement for creators serious about your art.
If you're into creating anything, this podcast is definitely for you. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey.
Hi, welcome to the I Create Daily podcast, a movement for creators serious about their art. I'm LeAura.
And I'm Devani, and this is our coffee break episode, and our coffee breaks are for drinking coffee, and we read a quote and we read a quote, and we kind of just have a dialogue about that quote and bring you some value. So today's quote is, "Creators, time to face your fears and your excuses and laugh them off their pedestal. The world needs your art," and that is by LeAura.
Yes, definitely. So we're all probably very well acquainted with the concept of fear.
Yes.
And, so what would be an example of some of the fears that come up when it comes to putting our art in the world?
Well, I was actually originally a little bit fearful of podcasting just because I didn't think I was ready. I didn't think that I was good enough to do that. I would listen to other people's podcasts and be like, well, they're interviewing inspiring people. What can I bring that's different, that's not just the same old thing that's happening? So that was probably a more recent example of a fear that I had. I don't know. Did you share that fear? Did you have another one?
No, but let me address this first, because what came to mind when we were talking about that is how you even went through a phase where you were saying that, I really don't even think I like to do the podcasting. I don't even think I'm really interested in podcasting. And I definitely don't want to do video. And you went through that phase, and really
I was dead set against podcasting and videos, and now we have a podcast video.
Yeah, a video podcast, right? Exactly. So, But let's step back to part of what was really happening when you were saying you didn't want to do it. Do you remember? And
so several things. First of all, I wasn't really I was in a rut, a creative rut of my own. And so it was one of those things where when you're in a creative rut, you repel any creative input or idea that somebody else has or that you have, and then you just discount it. So that was a big thing for me. I was in my own creative rut, and it just, and another thing is coming up with, when you are in a rut, you tend to come up with like every excuse of why whatever could be amazing would suck.
Yeah. So, that ties in. So the first part of the quote, time to face your fears and your excuses and laugh them off their pedestal, because what happens when somebody or something is on a pedestal, that means it's higher than we are. Mm-hmm. It's something that we look up to, right, and can't even imagine necessarily achieving. And so we really, a good approach to that is two ways to plow through that. One is just to do the thing. When you do the thing you fear the most, the death of fear is certain. And I don't remember who
originally. I think that's a Tony Robbins.
Or
a Jim Rohn.
Or
somebody famous that we all love.
Yeah, like Mark Twain. We'll come up with the right author before we actually publish this, and we'll put it in the show notes. But, that's when we face, so the other part of that is basically laughing at ourselves and our excuses, because so often all the things that keep us from doing the work that really matters most to us really are, when we get to the other side of them and look back, laughable.
Because when you do it, when you accomplish it, like we've had the podcast out for a month now, and when you think about everything that goes into doing that and just getting it out there, you get into the process of doing the action, and you don't have time to think about it. It's really when you stop and when you lose the momentum, when you get stuck in a rut, when you don't feel like you're moving forward, that all those fears really cloud your mind, because you have time to think about it. Like, you have time to dwell and you have time to overanalyze in your mind. And when you start overanalyzing, and I think creatives do this a lot, there's this balance of I'm creative and I'm in the flow and I'm getting it out there and everything's great. I'm making things, I'm publishing my books, I'm getting paintings out, I'm doing poetry, I'm writing music, whatever it is for you, you're doing it. But then there's a point where you might take a step back, and you have to be careful when you do that, because you don't want to stop in a negative way where you're being overly critical, where you're being overly self-analyzing to the point where everything sounds like a bad idea. Like, obviously improve and take feedback and be constructive and look at things objectively, but don't be the person who's like, well, I can never do that because I'm not Mark Twain, or I can never do that because I'm not John Lee Dumas, and there's no way in the world I could publish a podcast every single day. Just start doing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, along those lines, when we first set our goal for creating this podcast, we were thinking, we really want to do a podcast a day for 90 days. And like, it has proven to be not realistic for us to do that many, but at the same time, it is our goal still to work toward.
Yeah.
And it's only in particular for us not realistic at this time because it's not the only thing we're doing. It's just one of a number of things that we're doing in our businesses and our endeavors right now. So like when John Lee Dumas created his first only one daily podcast, that was the thing he was doing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so you have to be realistic and not be too hard on yourself if you don't meet your goals, but it's a balancing act between being aware of the excuses you're making versus, what's realistic that you can or can't do.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you were saying that, because I had drafted a blog post about excuses just a couple of days ago. And something that's really interesting about excuses and the reason that they trap us so much is because partly some excuses are based in seemingly sound logic. And when something seems logical to us, then it's so easy to trip yourself into thinking that it's okay. And then another aspect of that, so illogical seeming excuses, I'm doing so much, I do not have time to start a podcast. Well, if you step back and you look at all the things you're doing, maybe you have a job, maybe you have another aspect of your business that's the main part of the business as opposed to the podcast. Maybe you're running a challenge, you're trying to build a website, you're trying to launch an apparel line, whatever you're doing, it seems logical. Yeah, I have so much going on. Why would I start a podcast? That's crazy. Yeah. And so you start tricking yourself into, I can't do that because I don't have time to do it. And then most of the time, unless you have a amazing lucky set of peer groups or family that's helping you, very rarely will anybody call you out on subtle excuses like that. And so it gets you trapped in this loop of, these are logical, methodical decisions, as opposed to, no, that's just an excuse and you can do it.
And that's such a good point, because it brings to mind one of the reasons we created the I Create Daily Challenge. And group. So we have a Facebook group that is a free group, and then we have a Facebook group for a paid program that we have, which is the next one is coming up in January 2018. We will be running them quarterly, and it is called a 90-day goals 90-day goals challenge, right? It's like
90 days creators challenge, but we have a goals journal.
Yeah, thank you. That's where I was getting fumbling around. So thanks for clarifying that, Devani. So yeah, so we have that. And one of the things that, I remember what I was going to say. What was it I said brought that to mind?
Well, just the excuses and the cycle of excuses and how realistic they seem, and just not having the proper peer group around.
That was it. Yeah. And you were talking about people who would basically call you on it.
Mm-hmm.
So often what happens is there are people in our life and our network majority of the time that basically will sympathize with us and our excuses, and even commiserate and help encourage us to make excuses.
Yeah.
That's wonderful when we need it, and we all need it on occasion. But that will never help us achieve our goals, because it's always easier to step down and do less. There will always be people who will commiserate with us for doing less, for not getting done, for not being able to, for not pushing ourselves. There will always be people who will be willing for us to kind of hang out with them and talk about why we can't get our goals done. And while, again, we all need that on occasion, doing that as a way of life will never have us live the life of our dreams. But here's the thing. So often people who do that, they mean well, and they do care for us and care about us. Some people may be helping us make excuses because they don't want us to be disappointed. They don't want us to fail. And also psychologically, sometimes it's because if we are pushing ourselves and pursuing our goals, it kind of requires it of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, we become like the environment we're around, and the quote of, you become like the 5 people. Well, you're one of those people. And so if you're one of the 5 people in someone's network and you're going above and beyond, it really requires people to look at that and be like, oh, well, you have a busy life too. You have a job too. You have another business too. You're doing a side hustle. You have kids. You have family. You have responsibilities in the world to show up to. But you're doing this thing. And you're doing it really well. And some people, the best people, look at that and go, wow, I can do that too.
Yeah.
And
so
that's what you want to surround yourself with, whether it's virtually or in person. However you can do it, you want to surround yourself with it.
Yeah. So then you become not the person who needs consoling and empathy or sympathy, but rather the person in your peer group who is inspiring others to achieve more, and to either they will join you or they will move on and commiserate with the next person.
Yeah.
We don't really need the people commiserating with us in our life. We need the people who are going to push us to be uncomfortable, because it is on the other side of our comfort zone where we have the greatest growth. I think that's a Tony Robbins quote, approximately. And so, which ties in with the concept too of the second half of this quote, which is the world needs your art.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all agree that we have a world that has a lot of problems and a lot of need.
And a lot of pain.
A lot of pain. And there is so much beauty, so much potential, so many incredible, heart-centered, creative, loving, inspiring people in the world. From all, what do you call them? Generations. Is there? I was going to say genres, but it's generations. Yeah. And genres of industry and endeavor. And so it's like, the more it is that we spend time pulling ourselves up and pushing ourselves to achieve more than we thought possible, that's where we find more the core of who we are. And that's when we end up connecting more with other people who are doing that and living that life. And it is a charged, inspiring, rich, and rewarding life too. For
sure. And we interviewed Richie Norton on our podcast. We'll link the episode. But he was talking about, you can deliberate over what you're going to create. You can think of all the excuses, all the fears. But at the end of thinking about all of that, all the time you spend deliberating could have been time you spent creating. And so, and the world doesn't yet have your work.
Yes.
The time you spend being afraid and having all those questions come up about, can I do it? Can I not? You could be, a day ahead, 2 days ahead, a week ahead. We're now a month into the podcast and it's fun. Is it hard? Is it challenging for days? Yes, there's the challenges, but we're a month in, and you can do that too. And so all that energy that you spend being afraid can be used as momentum to move you forward.
Yeah, I think sometimes some of the more intelligent people, tend to tend to spend more time in the mind creating excuses, because we are really good at debate. We learned that in school. And we're good at, dialoguing with ourselves and creating reasons and explanations for why things won't work. And a lot of that really is just about delaying getting on with it.
Absolutely. Intelligence is that double-edged sword, because if you can debate something, it means you can convince yourself of why you shouldn't do it and have very intelligent reasoning behind why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But that also means you can have intelligent reasons to find out how to do it.
Yeah.
So it's another one of those excuses.
Exactly. So consider, what is it you're afraid of? And what excuses are you making? Look at those for yourself, what they are for you, and then ask yourself, is that fear really true? Is it valid? Is that excuse really true? Is it valid? And what if it wasn't true? What if that fear did not exist? If that fear didn't exist, what would I be doing? Then go do that. What if that excuse wasn't blocking my way? Then go do that and just get going in that direction, the direction you would be going if you weren't afraid and if you didn't have those excuses.
Yeah, I love that. We could go down like the rabbit holes of what is reality really. but that sums it up so great. Like, what would you be doing if you weren't afraid of that? Because you know what, we've all had fears and we've all faced fears, and if you've faced a fear before, you can face a fear again. And so,
nice.
You know,
if you faced a fear before, you can face a fear again. What if you haven't faced it before or haven't faced that fear before? There's always a first time, and it gets easier with each one. So really, it's just like fitness. It's a muscle.
It's all in your head.
It's an effort. It's an effort where you get stronger with practice.
Absolutely.
So go do you. Bring your art into the world and laugh your fears and excuses off their pedestal. We'll see you at the next one.
See you next time.
Bye. Thanks so much for joining us for the I Create Daily podcast. Please let us know what creatives you would like us to interview and what topics you would be interested in hearing more about.
And if you enjoyed this show, please leave a review on iTunes. We value your feedback. We read all the reviews, and it just helps us get the word out on the I Create Daily podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.